Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Mac here. Welcome back to the Let's Code series. Today we're going to be working on creating a dark mode and a mobile-ready website. I've made a few changes to the website off-screen, which is something I didn't really want to do, but if we take a look here, it's pretty much identical to the way that it was before. It should look basically exactly the same as it did in the last video. What I've actually changed is the code. I've been doing quite a bit of work to try to clean it up. Make it simpler, easier to read, which means, adding comments basically all over the place to say what's going on, trying to express things in the cleanest and most concise way that I can. That's kind of the main thing that I'm doing differently. I'm being deliberate about putting in comments and things and trying to write as little code as possible. This is particularly relevant if we take a look at the CSS page here. So I'll just open that up real quick. You can see, if you're familiar with the series, I've actually compressed the classes and IDs down quite a bit. A really good example of this would be these headings here, H1 through H6. In the last video, we had a separate class for each heading, and we still do, but we've abstracted away a lot of the details so that the classes are much simpler. Originally, we had 6 different classes where we would fill out details for, font weight, margin, text align, and a few other things. But now all of these settings are contained in one selector, and we're just using individual classes to do little simple things like change the font size. So where originally we were maybe using 30 or 40 lines of code to express something, we're now using less than 10. The goal isn't necessarily just to even save space here. Even 40 lines of code like this might just be over like a kilobyte or 2 of data. So in terms of like storage, we're not really doing anything that spectacular. But in terms of readability, as far as humans actually reading this, I think it makes a humongous difference. Not only because our entire CSS document is now the size that one section of our previous CSS document was, but also because we can actually just physically see more data in one place and get a more holistic picture of what we're working on. So we have more comments, we're being more specific about what's going on. All these comments are written in plain English so that we can, one, really quickly tell what's going on, but also search for things really quickly that maybe I don't remember exactly what I called a class or an ID, but I know what I was trying to do with it. That's pretty helpful. The main goal is just to abstract away as much unnecessary information as we possibly can. Now what we're doing today is we're implementing something known as media queries. These are a feature of CSS that will allow us to make our website interact with different states on a system, and adapt or respond to changes. Probably the most common setup for this feature is to read the resolution of a device and then make changes based on that resolution. So this is how we make responsive websites that work on mobile and desktop, but we're also going to use it to read the color scheme of an operating system and then have it respond to that. We're creating like a dark mode. I have a separate video about this specific feature that you can check out if you're interested, but the important thing that you need to know is that this is actually a fairly new feature, and it does have growing support. There's a website we can maybe check out here. I think it's called caniuse.com. This website should show us the kind of browser support for any given feature of CSS or HTML or anything. Now this originally, as far as I know, worked on Safari in OS X, and then it will work in iOS whenever iOS 13 comes out. And then it started working in Firefox and Chromium. It either is working or it will be working soon in Chrome because it's, working in Chrome Canary and Chrome Beta. It's also should be working on Windows 10. It has support in Edge, which is great. The only real holdout thus far is Android browser. Samsung and BlackBerry and basically everyone, with the exception of Firefox, apparently, has not yet jumped on the train. And it also looks like, okay, good. So it does work. It should work basically everywhere on desktop, assuming that you're running the latest version of macOS or Windows 10, and it should work on iOS. Hopefully, we're going to see support sometime soon for Android. But, we'll have to see. So before we can actually do anything in our CSS document, we have to add a little line of code to our HTML document. So we'll go ahead and switch over there. What we have to do over here is allow our website to actually read the state of our system. But I'm just going to add it right up here to the top of our document. Let's say maybe right here below the UTF-8 settings. So we'll just type in meta content equals width, device width, initial scale equals 1 equals 1, name equals viewport, and that should take care of that. I think I actually missed a quote right there. And okay, now we should be all set. Oh, I see what I did wrong. We also don't need that quote there. I think we're all set. So go ahead and save those changes, and we can switch back over to our CSS document. I didn't acknowledge it, but I am using Vim right now. I don't know, I've been really into it recently, so we'll see how long it lasts. But you should be able to follow along no matter what text editor you use. So now what we're able to do is we're able to have our website respond to the resolution of a given system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new line here, and I'm going to type at media only screen and in parentheses, max width is, and then we'll put in some value. I'm going to put in 460 pixels for now. And then we'll open and close curly braces, and all of the changes that we make are going to go in here. Okay, so let's try to explain this a little bit here. There's two schools of thought when it comes to building a mobile website. Actually, there's a ton of different schools of thought, but when it comes to media queries, there's two ways to think about this. First of all, we could design a website mobile first, which is kind of a big thing that you hear a lot about, or we could design it on the desktop first. In practice, the only main difference here is one keyword. Where I've written max here, you would write min, or vice versa. Now, the way that this works, the way to think about this is that when we put in a value, say max with 460 pixels, or actually I did that backwards, it should be 640 pixels. Okay. Whenever we put in a value, what I'm saying is whenever we get below 640 pixels, you should apply everything in between these curly braces. So in other words, we're setting up properties right here, and the max width for those properties is going to be 640 pixels. So as soon as we get above that resolution, it's going to cut off. Now, inversely, if you were doing mobile first, what you would probably want to do is use minimum width. You would design your site to look really good on a mobile website, and then you would put in minimum width, and then what we would put inside of these curly braces down here in our media query are all of the settings that we would want to take place on a desktop system. And then once we, again, cross above whatever our threshold is, things will be changing. So I hope it isn't too complicated. If it is, just maybe try playing around with it and you should get it. Now, I personally use my website more on desktop, and I think probably most people do. And I also find building mobile websites kind of easier than on desktop. They seem to be simpler to me. So I like to design first on desktop and then go over to mobile, which seems to be the opposite of what most people are doing. But I mean, it's working for me so far, so I'm just gonna keep doing it that way. Now, just as an example, we'll set something up here. So let's let me think what we could do here. Okay, so we'll take a look at these global properties that we've set for the whole website, and we'll try to do a little demonstration. So if I were to, inside of these curly braces, set up reference an element. So for example, in this case, it's just global, everything that's on our site. I could say something like background color is equal to red. And then if we write those changes, whenever we switch back to our website, if we reload the page, as we shrink it, at some point, we're going to hit that breaking point and things should happen. So right about here is apparently where 640 pixels is, and now our background is turning red. Now, inversely, if we were to change this value up here to minimum or min, and then write those changes, our website will be normal, plain white until we get to a resolution larger than 640 pixels wide. So maybe that makes sense. Now, we don't actually have a ton of elements set up yet, so there's not going to be a ton of stuff for us to change down here, but I still think it makes sense to just keep going to design all of this at once, make the website responsive as we go, rather than build a whole website and then come back and try to make it work on mobile, or build the whole website on mobile and then try to make it work on desktop. It seems easier to do it this way. So mainly what I want to do is I'm going to look at these fonts here, H1 through H4, and I just want to make them slightly smaller on mobile. One thing that we could do is we could look at, let's see, Apple or iOS font guide specs. And you could also look at these specs for Android as well. But the cool thing is that there are these style guides that are actually technically supposed to work for apps. But if we use these same settings for our website, it should look in proportion to everything else that you'd open up on the phone. So we could actually just copy these values exactly and see how it looks. So the way that would work is I would basically copy a line here. So we'll just get all of that. Okay, and then we could copy it and bring it right down here. Okay, we don't need that. We don't need that. And then we could change the font size for each heading. So if we want to just copy what iOS is set up, we could do 34 pixels. Whoa, I don't know what the heck just happened there. Wow. We could do maybe 34 pixels here, and then close that brace. We could come over here, and then this one might be 28 pixels, and then we might do 22 pixels, and then maybe 20 pixels. And then we could also reference the paragraph that we use. One other thing I'm going to do here, I'm just going to add another comment here, just so that we know what we're doing here. I'm going to say these are our headings. And then we could reference the paragraph and say font size is 17 pixels. And then we'll also just add a comment in there. Paragraph. Okay, then we could write those changes. And if we bring back down our website here and then refresh, whenever we hit that breaking point, all of our fonts should shrink. Okay, very nice. One other thing I do is I'm going to make this margin a bit smaller here. So I think the easiest way to do that would be we'll come right up here to the top, and we'll say HTML margin. Ooh, I might have to look at how we had it set up originally. 0 EM, 10%. So if we come down here, we would do 0 EM, maybe 5%. And that should look a little bit better there. We'll write those changes. Take a look. It's making no difference whatsoever. That's great. Oh, I know what the problem is. We don't need this comma in here. I think that's breaking everything. Remove that. Try it again. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty nice. All right, so like I said, we're not going to be doing a ton of stuff to the mobile website today. For the most part, this looks fine. But I do want to go ahead and actually implement a dark mode. So to do that, we're going to use another media query. So I'll add a comment down here and say this is our mobile site settings. And then what we can do is we can do @media, which is how we do @media. Oh, really quickly, one other thing that I should probably mention is order of operations here. The C in CSS stands for cascading. You may or may not know that. But basically what this means is that our browser reads the document from top to bottom. So if we were to write the same class or the same property twice with different values both times, the bottommost value is always what's going to end up being rendered on our web page. And so the same thing is true of these media queries. I just put them at the bottom of the page, but I didn't really explain why that was important. And it's because we're referencing all of the exact same properties that we've already set up in our main CSS document. So if we want those changes to take place, we need these media queries to live at the bottom of our web page. Okay, so back to this now. Media, and then in parentheses, prefers color scheme, and then either light or dark. And then again, open and close the curly braces, and this will contain all the settings that we want to change. So the way to think about this is that we're making changes based on whatever color scheme is selected in the OS that we're using. So if we build a standard light website and we're wanting to use this media query to enable a dark theme, the way that we would do that is we would type preferences, color scheme, dark. And so what that means is that when the computer goes into dark mode, we're going to apply all the changes inside of these braces. The same is true inversely. If we have like a dark website and we want to build a light version, we would change dark to light here. And then when our website reads it as systems in light mode, it'll go ahead and display that lighter version. There's also a third option called no preference, which you can look into if you want to, but that's not really relevant to what we're trying to do today. So I'm just gonna ignore it here. I'll also go ahead and add another comment here, in plain English, just saying exactly what we're doing, creating a dark mode, and write those changes. Okay, so let's head back up to the top of our CSS document again and take a look at all the places where we reference color. So first of all, we have a background color setting up here just on the global properties, and this is a white. We'll want to change that to a darker color. We also have color for all of our headings, and we have color for the paragraph, and we also have color for our link. And looking at this, there might be a way that we could actually clean this up a bit more. We might want to take a look at that. I might look at that off screen, but for now what we'll do is we just want to swap all of these colors down here in our media query. So the first thing we'll do is I'm just going to get in here, and I'll select that global properties, and we'll do a background color is equal to maybe 222. That should be a very dark color. Okay, and then we'll write those changes. I think actually we need to delete that, and then let's see what happened. Okay, cool. All right, now we have a nice dark theme here. Now we can go ahead and work on these headers and the paragraphs. So we will open up a new line, and we would do H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, all separated by commas to reference all of our headers. And then we could just open and close our curly braces and do color is equal to something much lighter, maybe like EEE. We'll take a look at that, and we might end up making it a little less intense here, but we'll go ahead and refresh the page. And you know what, actually, yeah, I think that'll work fine. Next up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the paragraphs. And inside of here, we'll do color is definitely going to be something less intense than our heading. So we might try like BBB. You don't have to use such uniform hex codes if you don't want to. I'm just kind of lazy. We'll make that a bit dimmer. Let's try A5, A6, A6, and then close that up. Take a look. Yeah, I think that'll work. Oh, and then let's go ahead and add some comments here. And the last thing we want to fix is our hyperlink color here. I'm still going to have it turn red on highlight because, I mean, that still looks fine. There's not really a reason to change it. But I just want to copy over this color from the paragraph. So we'll do A, and that should reference, actually, that might reference everything. Let me do a little test here and see what happens. So I'm going to do A6, 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 and then we'll close the bracket. Let's see. Okay, yeah. All right, so we're going to have to come back here and actually enter the different states for our link, which is fine. So I'm going to do a link, a hover, or sorry, a active, and then a visited, and we can delete that. And then if we refresh here, it's looking pretty nice. Something's gone wrong. All right, I'm not sure exactly why we had to add the hover down there as well, but you know, whatever, it's there now. So we'll add another comment here, and then we're actually done for today. There wasn't too much going on in this video. But now we should have a website that is, one, it's going to be nice and responsive. So as we shrink the website onto a phone, and it should also have both a light mode and a dark mode that should work on an increasing number of platforms, basically everywhere at this point. But that is all for this video. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one.